The United States has 58 national parks across the country. The sites hosted a record-breaking 307.2 million visits in 2015. In the 1920s and 30s, visitors began pouring into national parks. Most arrived by car, and the parks were not ready to handle the influx of tourists. Attendance soared, and the people were using these parks as playgrounds. As the U.S. economy turned sour, parks visits rose. In 2009, 285 million people spent a collective 1.25 billion hours in the national parks, the highest number since 2000, according to NPS figures. Over the past 50 years, tourism has become a major cause of environmental damage when it should be a force of enhancement and protection.
Whether it's noise pollution from cars or trampling vegetation, tourists are harming the land. National parks are fragile environments that need extra effort exerted in order to preserve them for future generations. From Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains to the Grand Canyon of Arizona, major parks are grappling with illegal camping, vandalism, theft of resources, wildlife harassment, and other misbehavior, according to the records. In July alone, law enforcement rangers handled more than 11,000 incidents at the 10 most visited national parks. Recent events at Yellowstone that grabbled national headlines include a Canadian tourist putting a bison calf in his SUV, hoping to save it, causing wildlife workers to euthanize the animal when they could not reunite it with its herd, and the death of a Washington state man who left a designated boardwalk and fell into a near-boiling hot spring. According to our source, Andrew S., park supervisor of Bear Creek Lake Park, he had noticed the main issues are with unintentional damage to natural resources. Many people confined to small areas, typically focused around main park attractions, tends to result in off-trail use, parking on vegetation, trampling of vegetation, and creation of social trails. These issues then develop into erosion issues, loss of habitat as vegetation dies, and replacement of native vegetation with invasive weed species. To counteract this, park managers implement site hardening and crowd control techniques such as sidewalks, hardened paths, fencing, signs, and enforcement presence. These can be effective, but are also themselves further impacts to the park's natural resources and visual appeal, becoming somewhat of a vicious cycle. Large numbers of people and vehicles also increases safety risks, including traffic issues and law enforcement issues, while also increasing impacts such as air and noise pollution and disturbance of wildlife habitat.
National parks need to show visitors how they can be responsible tourists with events, leaflets, informational centers, guided walks and events, signs, and websites. Visitors should be encouraged to leave their cars behind
And use greener travel like bikes, buses, boats, and trains. Outdoor activities need to be enhanced that don't damage the countryside or harm wildlife. Visitors should buy local products and food. Green businesses schemes should be more abundant to encourage businesses to recycle, reduce energy, conserve water, and be sustainable. Local communities could be asked for their views and ideas by setting up forums, groups, and consultations. Erosion caused by visitors by creating and repairing footpaths. Use planning policies to control the spread of buildings in built-up areas development. Green energy efficient buildings with planning policies and grant funding could be built. Parks need to encourage small-scale renewable energy schemes like wood chip boilers and solar panels with planning policies and grant funding. From our data collected, we have come to the conclusion that tourism in national parks have left a big footprint in every aspect. So, the effects of tourism need to be reduced in order to keep these national parks in America beautiful.